have you ever changed clothes and then done it like 4 different times only to end up wearing what you were in the first place?
Yes!
Yeah.
Oh my God, every day for the past 3 days.
Yeah, exactly.
That's actually a great metaphor. Okay. Hello, friends.
Hello, friends.
And welcome back to another episode of Pickles and Vodka, the mental health podcast where we're changing the world one episode at a time.
Wow.
More like one breakdown at a time.
That's actually better. I like that.
Where we're changing the world one breakdown at a time.
That's right.
I'm Christina.
And I'm Lauren.
And we're back today with yet another poll episode. We have gathered the data and the results are in.
Yeah.
I just did my taxes.
I wanted to today and I did not.
Wait, really?
That was my goal today. Yeah.
That's funny because it was not my goal today. It just kind of happened accidentally.
I mean, my goal for this week had been, I was like, I'm going to get them done by February. And
well,
obviously that's today.
6.5 hours.
Yeah. I probably won't do it today.
But yes, today we are sharing listener results for our poll about change. But first, Lauren, where the fuck are you at?
Well, I was thinking about this question earlier and realized my first answer was just kind of what I've been saying the last couple weeks. Because the first thing I was thinking is I was like, I don't know. I've just been kind of feeling off and feeling kind of like a lot of depression stuff without necessarily knowing why. And then I was like, I said that either last week or the week before. So yeah.
Maybe both.
Possibly. It's the same thing as we said before. Like it feels like it's kind of confusing. And then I remind myself that it's like, oh yeah, that is a person diagnosed with depression. It doesn't just happen because something terrible happened in your life. It is your brain.
That's a really good point. I think a lot of us fall into that trap of thinking that if we feel shitty, there must be a reason why. Yeah. I mean, there is a reason why, like you said, it's our brain, but like an external reason why.
Yeah. And that's what I think, having dealt with it a lot in past years, that I had to remind myself that because I am always quick to remind myself of that when other people, like maybe people that don't experience it and don't misunderstand. And they're just like, well, what do you have to feel sad about? And it's like, life. I don't know. My existence. And so it's like reminding myself like, yeah, it's just a thing that happens, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, how has your depression been affecting your life this week? Might be a good follow-up question.
It sends me spiraling very easily. Because another thing I was thinking about that has me just kind of feeling, I don't know, bummed out and unimportant this week is I've been trying to end sessions with my dietitian for a while. And I've talked about this before, that she's very good and that she pretty much is a double as a therapist. Like she does really well on that side, but that is also not her job. And I feel like I need a therapist more. I just don't want to get rid of her now when I don't have a therapist. So I've been looking for one. And the last session with her, I said like, oh, I'm going to reach out to some people, and I hadn't by sessions. So she's like, let's just do it here. And I was like, that's a great idea. So I sent out a couple emails and was only realizing now, like 2 weeks later, thinking like, oh, and our next thing's going to come up. I was like, literally nobody responded to the email. And that just, I don't know, it feels, like if you reach out to a center that has like 4 or 5 different therapists and it's like their general communication line and just saying like, hey, I just want to know if anyone's accepting new people or what's available. You would expect like common courtesy to at least respond to you.
Yeah, that's really odd.
Yeah, so it does feel like kind of sucky. And then, we've talked before about my past history with bad history with therapists and, with some ghosting me and having to go through so many and not working out for so many reasons. So I just think like with that happening, it's just kind of like, how much more of this can I do? I feel like I've put so much in. Can the world just give me a break for once? Can you just do what you're supposed to and respond? So I'm just exhausted by the idea. And it's like, I know I have to keep pursuing it, but it's like, oh God, why can't something work out?
Well, yeah, and the depression doesn't make it any easier.
Exactly.
Ironically, the reason you need a therapist.
Right.
But at least you have your dietitian for now. I mean,
yeah.
At least you're not going to quit her until you have another therapist, right?
Yeah, because I'm like, that's like the main reason why I hang on to that now, is because I don't feel like it would be a good idea for me to have nothing.
Now, I know you've been struggling with food and eating the last few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about it a little bit on one of the recent episodes. Do you think your dietitian has been helping with that? Or are you letting her in on that?
I think when I talked about it on whatever episode recently, I did say that I recently let her in on just sort of like the slow slide the past couple months that I'd been hiding. So, and I was actually, because we'd been talking a lot about ending the time with her. And so I was kind of afraid then. I was like, oh man, I'm going to be honest. And we've been talking about this, and she's going to be like, well, now I don't think that you should quit anymore. But
well, I mean, you're an adult. You have autonomy. Like, you don't have to stay with a provider if you don't want to. But yeah, that was a thought that occurred to me. Like, ooh, is that such a good idea?
But I think that she understood, like, the way that I discussed it with her, that despite that still the therapy side is probably what's needed the most. And I am looking for like a therapist that is well versed or whatever in eating disorders. So, you know, it will still get addressed. But yeah, I think we both agree that it's just kind of like it's more the therapy side than someone telling you what to add at meals or not. Like,
right.
Yeah.
Because we know that information.
Exactly.
That's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just hard to implement it.
Yeah. Like I said, just with how my general mood and getting through the weeks has been lately, it just feels like life is exhausting.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Damn.
That's where I'm at. Life is exhausting.
Amen, sister. I feel that.
How about you?
Well, today was my last day of PHP.
Uh-huh.
So I'm finally done. I can't believe I made it to the end because there were a few days that I wanted to quit.
Mm-hmm.
At the very end, I gave out the podcast to everybody. So there may be some people listening to this from PHP.
That's cool.
Yeah, I guess I'm still kind of processing it. I'm trying to take a moment to be proud of myself because my instinct is to just jump straight into work mode.
Yes.
Because that's my next goal, is to work as much as possible and save as much as possible so I can move to Richmond in the fall.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously that carries a lot of stress with it.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to let myself, be stressed out later. But for now, I'm just trying to give myself a pat on the back and take a moment to just breathe and regroup.
Well, good.
Yeah.
Because I know from my experience going through like inpatient treatment, then, the first time that's exactly what I did, is I got out and I went to work the next day pretty much. And you know what? That's never worked for me.
Yeah, I mean, I have been working this whole time.
Yeah, but obviously at a lesser capacity.
Right.
Yeah.
And yeah, tomorrow night my siblings are hosting a game night.
Oh, cool. What kind of stuff do you play?
It's different every time. I think the last time we played What Do You Meme?
Oh, I've played that before.
New Phone Who Dis?
Okay, I've never heard of that.
I don't know. It's kind of different every time. Jackbox.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's what I was just wondering, if it's more like board games or like card games or like Cards Against Humanity type games or what.
But yeah, I shaved the sides of my head.
Okay.
I haven't told anybody this. It was kind of a spur of the moment thing.
Yeah, that's most of my hair decisions.
It feels amazing. Like, just running my hands over the buzzed part is just so satisfying.
So today it is like after being like freezing cold the past couple of weeks, it is 74 degrees here. So you said that, and that was the first thing I thought. As I was like, oh, I bet that would feel so good outside today.
Yeah, I have been getting outside more this week, which has been really good for my mental health.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have much to report either, honestly. I'm just ready for the next chapter and trying not to be too afraid.
Yeah. I mean, You can't predict things, unfortunately. Much as we would like someone to hand us a blueprint. No.
Yeah, I mean, literally, we were just talking about stress today in one of my last groups, and how one of the helpful things is to remind yourself, like, will this matter a week from now, a month from now, a year from now?
Mm-hmm.
And I know that sounds basic, but that's really helpful for me to hear because I do catastrophize things.
Yeah.
Like, I'm broke right now.
Yeah.
I know in my head that money comes and goes and that I have 2 jobs and I will eventually start making money again. And if I think back to a year ago, I was also feeling broke.
Right.
And I don't even remember how much I had in my bank account a year later, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's just, yeah.
It's hard not to see things getting worse sometimes when you have no idea what way they're going to go.
Yeah, especially when it's a coping mechanism to expect the worst, because then you won't be disappointed / hurt.
Oh, yeah. The always hope for the best, but expect the worst.
Yeah. I feel like one of these days we should do a role-playing segment where we both describe the worst possible scenario that we're fearing.
Oh, that would be fun and terrifying.
I know, right?
Yes.
Like next time we show up and we're both super anxious, I wonder how effective that would be.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's where I'm at.
All right.
I am really excited to go over our listener answers to the poll. So in case y'all missed the episode 188, we talked about change, specifically the stages of change model.
Yeah.
So in case you're unfamiliar, I'll give a brief summary. There's 7 stages of change in this model: pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, maintenance, and then termination or relapse.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to go over what each one is. You can go back and listen to the episode. But the question that we asked listeners was, which stage of change are you in, and what would it take to get to the next stage?
Right.
So we have a comment and 2 voicemails.
Okay.
I am going to play Orion's voicemail first.
All right.
What stage of change am I in? The state of constant change, baby. Everything is changing all the time when you don't expect it, when you least expect it, and never in a way that you think it's going to change. I'm always trying to do deliberate changes, and then like the circumstances around that changes. And instead of being frustrated by that, I'm just like, the stages of change are not linear. And life in general is so unpredictable. And there's parts of you, honestly, I think that never change, or that change without you even knowing or trying. So I think that like the point of any change, like if you really want to make a change in your life, you can't just say, I want this thing to change, so I'm going to change this entire aspect of my life. It's like, okay, what can I do that's between my 2 hands today? Because that's all you can control. And it's just like tiny, tiny little changes that add up in the end. And yeah, just look back on your life and see all of the changes you made just by little tiny changes. That's how we do it. That's how it goes. Ultimately, no matter how successful each little change that you try to do is, even if like a change doesn't stick or it doesn't go the way you want, what's important is that you like flex that muscle in your mind that says you can change. And you can survive change, and that you can at least try. Sometimes all you can do is like imagine change in your mind, even if you're not ready to make it, even if it's not something you could ever make happen. Just like, it's so important to just keep imagining a life different than the one that you don't like, because that's the only way you're going to get there. That's what I'm telling myself.
I don't know what that was at the very end.
I know, I loved the timer.
I know, like, was it an oven? What, were you getting paid?
It's like, well, gotta stop talking now.
I know, I thought that was so funny. But thank you so much, Orion. It's good to hear from you again.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I have some questions that emerged from that voicemail. But first, I want to hear your thoughts right off the bat.
Okay. First, I will say, unfortunately, in my new environment, I just assume that everyone on their desk is going to have some sort of writing implement, and I'm scrambling around, so I couldn't take notes.
Oh, Lord.
But what was the first thing that I was thinking? Oh, where he said, sorry, Pico's sitting on my lap and he's licking my feet. He needs to stop that. Because that's gross.
How very Christ-like of him.
Oh, Pico.
If you know, you know.
Yes.
Pickles and Vodka, where we blaspheme weekly.
Even about our pets.
Especially about our pets. Anyway, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Continue.
But one of the first things that he said was how you can't say, like, I'm going to change and it will just happen. And that just gave me the thought, like, yeah, I mean, at least as far as like a big change, like you can't say, like, I don't want to be like this anymore, so I'm going to change and be like this instead. And I was like, yeah, because that's not actually changing. That's controlling. That's thinking that you can control things. And it's like,
when you said that, I immediately thought of a makeover.
Oh,
like that is a change that you can control. Like I shaved my head this week. I wanted to change and I did it. Easy peasy.
It is something you can control. But as you were saying that too, I was thinking of, especially like having seen a lot of 80s and 90s movies with cheesy makeover montages and things like that. So it's like, yes, you can do something like that and change the physical. But I feel like people a lot of times, if they say like, I need a makeover, they think it's going to change other things about their lives. Like,
yes.
And then, when I have a more like professional hairstyle and change how I dress, then suddenly I'm going to be more put together and, and I'm going to be more on top of things and everything's going to fall into place. And it's like, nah, you just changed your hair.
Yeah, that is a good point, that people do kind of expect to change their personalities when they change their looks.
Mm-hmm.
Like in the past, I've been thinking about shaving my head for the longest time, like years, but I've always been too afraid because it's a big deal.
Yeah.
And when I pictured myself with a shaved head, I pictured this, super confident, badass person who took no shits and just...
Yeah, it's like obviously someone that just shaved her head just does not give a fuck.
But guess what? I still give just as many fucks as always.
Right.
At the end of PHP, they were doing my little graduation ceremony and everyone was going around saying nice things about me. And I literally took the clipboard and covered my face with it because I
can see you doing that, actually. I know you well enough now. I'm like, I can actually imagine this.
Yeah, the facilitator was like, we're going to take the last 20 minutes to talk about Christina. And I was like, fuck. But that's an example. Like, even with a shaved head, I still
would have been doing that. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's a stupid example, but you get the
I
idea.
think it makes sense. Yeah.
But yeah, you cannot really utter a change into being.
Yeah.
If that were the case, then we probably wouldn't have this podcast.
And then change would be easy. And I think everybody knows it is difficult.
I like how Orion said it's a muscle that you have to flex in your brain.
Me too.
Because big changes are really hard to pull off.
Yeah.
Not a hot take, but I feel like, yeah, you do need to start with the tiny, tiny little changes first to prove to yourself that you can make changes.
Yeah, I felt like that was the other point that he was kind of making too, not just that you can't, just like speak a big change into existence, but also that I think once maybe people come to grips with that idea, then a lot of times they might go completely to the other side and just be like, oh, well, then trying to change is futile because I will never be able to make this big change. And it's just kind of like, well, no, don't be afraid to make little ones. That's life is fluid.
Yeah, life is just never ending change. And I think I'm really glad that he brought that up because I think last time we talked about this, obviously we were centering our conversation around the stages of change model, which implies that change is linear.
Yeah.
But in reality, it doesn't work like that all the time. You don't just decide, okay, I'm going to make this change. I'm in pre-contemplation mode. Now I'm in contemplation mode.
Right.
So, it does happen sometimes when you don't even want it to or expect it to.
And even in our conversation, I remember I said something that was I think it was stage 2 and 4. I said I felt like I often just vacillate between those two, that it's I'm in 2, I'm in 4, I'm back in 2. I don't know where 3 went. But
contemplation and action.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that brings me to the first question that I thought of listening to that voicemail. What's a change that you weren't expecting?
Oh, I feel like you need to give me some of these questions like beforehand.
Well, I didn't have them beforehand. I was literally just jotted them down as he was talking. I mean, for me, honestly, I wasn't expecting to get sober this time around.
Okay.
If I'm completely honest, when my therapist suggested PHP, I was like, okay, I'll do it. It'll be good for me to have some structure. I'll meet some new people. I'll talk about my feelings, but I fully expect to just smoke weed throughout. And what I wasn't expecting was to like actually quit. I don't know if that's the best example.
I don't know. I'm here for it.
This is so unlike me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not doing anything right now. Like, I'm not doing Benadryl. I'm not doing weed. I'm not throwing up. Like, this is the 5th day, I think, of no purging.
Wow.
I know. Hold the applause.
I don't have the applause sound to trigger.
Well, I mean, the reason I say that's not the best example is because that's still something that I did that was kind of within my control.
Yeah, but as you were saying that, I was thinking like, that's true. In the past, you know, I've heard you like willing to work on one thing, and I feel like that's always on the heels of it. It's like, oh, but I know that means the eating disorder is going to ramp up, or yeah, weed's not my problem, so I'm not going to quit that. So it is interesting that, like you said, you weren't expecting it, and it happened.
Yeah, like just today, I was getting in the shower and noticing my body, and I don't know what I weigh, but I feel like I've gained weight recently, and I was so surprised that it didn't strike panic in me like it normally does. I was barely even thinking about it. Instead, I was, thinking about PHP and my job and what podcast I would play,
Yeah.
And that's why I say, like, whenever I do quote unquote recover, it's always by accident. It always sneaks up on me when I'm least expecting it.
Absolutely. I agree with that completely.
And I hate that word, but
I know, we both do.
But I guess, yeah, that's why I'm so surprised, because I hate the word recovery and because I'm so, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about it in the past. Like, one of the best runs that I felt like I had was when I left treatment against everybody's recommendations at the beginning of the pandemic, when everybody else was using that to fall apart. And I was just like, I actually did really well. It just kind of happened.
Well, if you still can't think of one.
I did actually think of one.
Okay, go for it.
Because I was thinking, as you're talking, I was like, oh, wait, let's think. Where am I recording right now? As we know, Basis Basement. But that's what
I was going to say.
Yes, that's what I was thinking. Is I was just like, I didn't plan to get into a relationship. And that's the thing, is because it wasn't never. Like, if I think of, before this started, then I wasn't at such a place that I was just like, forget it. I've totally given up. It's never going to happen for me. It was just more like, I just don't have the energy right now. I'm sure someday I will, but now I'm just going to keep going how I am and accept that that's my life at this moment. And then just suddenly I was like, oh, hey, look what happened.
Yeah. I mean, change happens, I think, when you're not expecting it. Like, you almost have to let go of your expectations to be in control.
Mm-hmm.
And then that opens up the door for change to just happen naturally.
And I did kind of hate that part about that, because I feel like that's like times when I've been really frustrated, like I've wanted to be in a relationship and it's not working out. Then I'm like, oh, people always say like, as soon as you stop searching, they'll find it. And I was just like, I'm mad that they're right.
Tough titties. The other question I have is, what parts of you never change? Because Orion talked about how there's some parts of you that never change. And I thought that was interesting, because my first reaction was like, well, never say never.
Right.
But I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think there are some parts of you that never change?
Yes, is the short answer. But I'm wondering if I feel like you're only going to know the parts that never change, like on the day you die.
Oh, that's fair.
Because I do still feel like that's kind of going with some other things Orion said, that it's like you really just, change is just always happening and you can't necessarily control it, and you don't know. You just don't know. Because there's definitely things that I have told myself will never change.
Well, yeah, it's different. Like, for instance, I have felt like my eating disorder will never change. Like, I will always have an eating disorder. I will never be happy with my body.
That's the first one I thought of too. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. My eating disorder is not an innate part of me. Like, it's something I developed. If I'm thinking of things that like, I'm trying to think of the way I was when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I've always been very imaginative and creative, and I feel like that's never going to change.
Yeah, that just made me sad because I realized,
Really?
well, yeah, because as you said that, I realized I was like, oh, when I was a kid, then I was already like writing books and I just assumed like that would be my life. And I feel like I don't write as much as I want to lately. And I've kind of lost that. And I'm like, oh, I think that changed.
Well, and that opens the floor to debate because, like, it might not have changed. Maybe it's just dormant.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's, because that's where I don't feel like it's a change where it's just kind of like, well, that chapter of my life is over. Like, I'm totally holding space that it could come back. But for now, it's just kind of like, yeah, it's not where I wish it was.
And like that, the last thing he said about how it's really important to imagine changes, like even if you can't reach them right now, that is really important because, like, I would love to write a book. I would love to live in a house to myself, like a teeny little house with a piano and my cats.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's something that I would have to change a lot to reach those things. And if I, tried going through the stages of change, it would be just overwhelming / impossible.
That's those big changes that it's kind of like you can't just suddenly say like, oh, I'm going to steer the ship this way and here we go.
But yeah, one change I can make is getting up 15 minutes early and writing in my journal.
Yeah.
For instance. I don't know. I really liked that voicemail.
Me too.
Let's play the next one.
Okay.
This is from Jess.
Another frequent voicemailer.
Yes, here she is.
Fuck, this episode on change. What a mind fuck. If you can stick with me through this, holy cannoli. Okay, so I listened to this week's episode on change and I think, man, I'm gonna have to skip this week's pickle poll because I've been in just pure chaos for the last month or so. I've been treading water so much that I don't think that there's any one thing I can say I'm actively working on for change and to identify a stage. So about a month ago, I lost Medicaid. Mind you, I took a significant pay cut to finish my grad program. So I don't know how I lost Medicaid, but I did. I had to tell my counselor I need to discontinue. I can't afford it. He offered me pro bono sessions. Throughout these conversations, I ghosted him for weeks at a time. So he offered me pro bono sessions. I finally wrote him back and was like, hey, I'm feeling a lot of guilt, a lot of shame over you giving me free sessions. I'm feeling like I have to analyze every area of my life that I'm spending any bit of money at. You're giving me free sessions. You're not getting paid. I'm just feeling a lot of guilt over it. So he offers me some dates and times that are open to schedule, and I ghosted him for another week. I finally reached back out today to schedule, and I immediately went into panic mode and started rehearsing for my session. Oh my God, who rehearses their counseling session? I have ADHD and I often rehearse conversations like most of us do with ADHD, but not for counseling. This was me figuring out how honest I wanted to be with him. There are very identifiable things for me that are going on that definitely need to change. I'm just not ready to do anything about it. And then there's a part of that I'm not sure what the problem is, that's preventing me from being honest with my counselor about what's going on. To get to the next phase, I don't know. I tried to schedule an appointment, which is what prompted me trying to decide how much I was going to let him in. So there's that. At least I'm going to show up, and part honesty is better than no honesty, I guess. Yeah. The things that I am aware of, I don't want to change because it means I have to not have control over that. And many of us who have disordered eating behaviors understand that need for control. However, I may not need that therapy appointment with him after all. Thanks for this free process out loud therapy session, Lauren and Christina. I'm forever grateful to pickles and vodka.
I want to give first, it's not so much like commenting on her voicemail. It's more like just my overall reaction. Because First I found myself being like, Jess, where do you live? Because I want to hang out with you so much.
I know, right?
Yes.
I don't think I know where she lives.
And the other thing is throughout the whole thing, I feel like this is all kind of like the things that she was thinking, the things that she was feeling were all, like new territory to her. I mean, like she made the comment of like, who rehearses things that they say to their therapist? And we're both like, yeah, But just like the whole voicemail, I felt like, that it was all just like a surprise to her to be feeling this way. And, like, so maybe like her and I generally don't have the same sort of approach to things. But everything in that voicemail, I was just like, my brain just got transplanted into yours for a bit. I understand 100% every single thing you're saying. It all makes perfect sense to me.
Totally.
I just enjoyed that. I just had to say.
I know. No, me too. Especially the holy cannoli.
Yeah.
That made me smile. Yeah, I mean, first of all, it sounds like you're going through a lot. My stomach dropped when you talked about losing Medicaid, because that's kind of where I see myself being soon. And I mean, it's great that your therapist is offering pro bono sessions, but I also can relate to the guilt you feel for accepting that.
Oh yeah, I felt like the pride of not wanting, because I've been in that place too, where I haven't been able to afford things and people are offering stuff to me, and it's like, oh no, I can't do that. Which, one thing I wanted to say on that, and I don't know if this is different by states or this is different by places. I just remember I was in that situation once where I was just like, okay, I've gotten to a point where literally, like I was on a sliding scale and I'm like, I can't even pay that. So I'm just like, I just have to end it. And the therapist I was seeing did the same. They offered me free sessions. And, obviously I expressed all my guilt with that. And what she told me is, at least, her situation is, she's like, I am required by law to offer a certain percentage of pro bono sessions. And she's like, and right now I have 0. So you are actually helping me, because
Whoa.
I need to offer some.
Man, I mean, that's great for people to know.
Yeah, because I mean, I still felt like horribly guilty because I'm paying nothing, but it was like, okay, that makes it a little easier to accept. It doesn't feel like
helping
I'm
someone else.
Just a charity case. Yeah.
I think the ability to change yourself is sometimes a luxury or a privilege.
Mm-hmm.
Because she mentioned treading water.
Yeah.
And feeling like she's unable to change because everything is just so, like, all her energy is just being spent keeping afloat.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, important to touch on too. I think we touched on this briefly, that people think they have to constantly be changing for the better. And that's a lot of pressure people put on themselves.
Yeah.
But that's not always possible.
No, that's totally unrealistic, actually.
And like Orion said, change is going to happen eventually, like whether you want it to or not. That's just how life works.
Yeah, I did love also how on the end I felt like she touched on the idea of trying to make change be control, and realizing like they're not the same thing. I can't use it as an excuse to control.
The ironic thing is, as she was talking, I was thinking, it sounds like you are changing.
Oh,
like
yeah.
You are working towards change. At first I was like, okay, maybe you're in pre-contemplation where you're not even aware of the change that needs to happen. But it sounds like you are.
Yeah.
Like it sounds like, you want to be more honest with your therapist. You want to work on accepting the pro bono sessions. And that's the thing. We're all changing, even if we don't see it.
Yeah. It's inevitable. It just happens.
And Jess, you are changing. Like every day you're changing. It just might not be visible, but not all the stages are visible.
Yeah.
And they don't always lead to like a tangible outcome.
And as we discussed earlier, like even though we talked about stages in the episode before, they're not linear.
No, not at all. Yeah, I mean, each new stage of change, I think, can be panic inducing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be comfortable. And you might, be stuck on one stage for a long time, and that's okay.
Yeah, because we've said that it's not something that you can set an end date for and know, like, at this point, I'll be this person or something like that. It's just like there's so much uncertainty with change, I guess.
Totally. I mean, have you ever, like, told someone you need to change clothes and they respond with, "Don't change, you're good just the way you are"? Like that joke?
I probably have, and it's definitely been a long time. Luckily, no one said that to me.
But there is some truth to that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, certainly we should always be striving to grow, but also you're fine the way you are, like where you are in this moment, I know I
wanted to pull that further though when you use that metaphor. It's like, also have you ever changed clothes and then done it like 4 different times only to end up wearing what you were in the first place?
Yes!
Yeah.
Oh my God, every day for the past 3 days.
Yeah, exactly.
That's actually a great metaphor. Yeah, because sometimes I think we try to force changes for the wrong reasons, whether it's due to external pressure or what we think we should
Expectations,
be. Expectations,
yes.
control, all that shit. But yeah, sometimes it's just okay to just stay with the outfit you have.
Yeah.
Because it served you well, and the strangers on the street don't know that you've been wearing that outfit every week.
Yeah.
To them, it's a new outfit.
And there's a reason you picked it out in the morning. So,
Exactly.
Go with
what
your first instinct.
Works.
Yes.
Never change. Moral of the story, you don't need change.
Oh, no.
Any changes you're making, you got to revert that. Go right back to the beginning.
Stay the same forever. No.
But yeah, do you have anything else to say about that voicemail?
No, I don't think so.
Just be our friend.
Yeah. Visit us. I hope you live close.
Okay, so we got a comment from Vicky, old friend of the pod.
Yeah, all our regulars came out today.
I know, I love it. We love you guys.
Yeah.
Okay, so Vicky says, while inpatient, we had to identify which stage of change we were in, and I remember being utterly infuriated that I was somehow pegged as pre-contemplation. I was in inpatient treatment after floundering in recovery just with outpatient treatment. Seeing a therapist, ED nutritionist, and psychiatrist, had set everything in my life aside to get admitted to a hospital for treatment, and I was only pre-contemplation? I felt very confused and angry by this.
I feel like I've been in that situation as well, but I can't think of when.
Well, so how would you summarize what she's saying?
That she feels like she's putting in the work to change and someone's telling her, no, you haven't even started. I mean, that's like basically the feeling. I was like, yes, I know I've been there before, where it's just kind of like, what? Is everything I'm doing nothing? And I don't know what to think about that. I mean, partly because, I wasn't there. I don't know the situation. Maybe there was a reason for people telling her pre-contemplation, but I totally get the frustration.
Well, it's like the conclusion I came to on that episode where I thought I was in the action phase because I was in PHP.
Right.
But in reality, I think I was in the contemplation phase because I was thinking about giving up weed, but I actually hadn't yet. And It did take a lot of humility, I guess, to admit that to myself.
Yeah, and I guess there's 2 sides, because there is, as you just said, like you might want to think that you're further along than you are, and maybe, someone needs to slap you with a little reality. But on the other side, I feel like sometimes, don't discount yourself, because it's like outside people might not realize. You're like, yeah, I didn't make like a big sweeping change that everyone can see. I did something very small and internal, but it mattered to me.
Yeah, only you know how you're changing. And I know, like, we're the ones asking people, like, how did you change? But you don't have to answer that.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to broadcast the changes you're making. You don't have to even track it, really. Although I think there are benefits to that, like journaling every day. I can totally see how much I've changed. And that's really cool.
Definitely. And I mean, like you've made this comment in the past, just like having this podcast, that you've been doing it for however many years. I've been on it for a couple of years at this point, and listening to an old episode and being like, oh, wow, there was some change. Who knew?
Yeah, but in the moment, it doesn't feel like it. And if we're only going by other people's feedback.
And even here, like if we just go like week to week, I can come like the next week and feel like, yeah, I'm pretty much in the same position that I have been. I could say that every week, but then I could go between.
You do say that every week.
Yeah, but then I could go between 2 years and be like, oh, wait, actually.
No, that's a great example, because I feel like every week with where you're at, you're like, I don't know, I'm the same as last week. I don't really know how I'm doing. But over the shut up, we're almost done. But yeah, when you put it all together, you actually have changed a lot.
As have you.
Yeah, we both have. And the podcast has. And so have our listeners.
Yeah.
Everyone's changing all the time. And don't let anyone tell you how to do it.
Yeah.
Including us.
Right. We're just commentating. We don't know. We can't tell you how to change.
We're not therapists, despite what Jess might say.
We can't tell you to change. I mean, if you just decide, I am just fucking happy as I am.
Yeah, like with me right now, having just graduated from PHP, my mind is immediately like, all right, you need to go to the next change.
Mm-hmm.
But it's okay to not want to do that. Like, it's okay to just kind of chill where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
And the changes will just kind of happen organically, I feel like.
And I know after our episode about change, then for like a week or so, then I was thinking about things based on some conversations we had. I know like stuff came up about my job. And so, I had a few days where I was just like, oh, really? I should, like look out and see what's out there because I said that I would do that or something like that. And I was starting to get kind of like discouraged because I did feel like, oh, I had such great ideas when we're talking and I'm not doing it fast enough. And just now, as I'm thinking about that, I'm like, well, so maybe I'm still in contemplation. Big deal.
Exactly. And that's okay. Like, I think a lot of times we let ourselves be pressured to change because other people are making changes or talking about changes or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But like Vicky said, we don't really know what someone is going through. Like, just because someone's talking, like, the people that are always talking about changes they're making.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the first thing that I thought of is I thought of people that I have known and probably some that I have dated that are like this, that always seem to have like a big idea that's going to change their lives. I mean, especially, I don't know, for some reason with guys, it seems like it's going to be like, it's going to make me a ton of money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It just feels like, okay, you're on to the next big thing that you think is going to change your life fast and easy, which is never the case.
No such thing.
I don't know where I was going with that, but something made me think of that.
Yeah. So that's about all I have.
Okay.
For this topic. I think we wrapped it up in a neat little positive bow.
Yeah. I feel good about it.
Thank you for everyone who responded.
Mm-hmm.
Next week, we will be back with a topic of Lauren's choosing.
Wrong.
What?
I chose the last topic.
Just kidding. Next week, we'll be back with a topic of my choosing, apparently.
I like that. I was just playing, as you're speaking, I'm playing it out in my head. I'm like, she's going to say, yep, a topic of my choosing. Then you said Lauren's, and I was like, what the fuck?
And then we also have a poll out, but I haven't posted it yet because I'm a piece of shit. How did your family view mental health and how does it affect you now?
Yes.
Yeah, I will make sure to post that to the Instagram so y'all can start sending those answers in. It is due 2 weeks from when this comes out.
Yeah.
So you have a little bit of time.
Because that one, I feel like when we get listener stories, it's going to open up so much more. I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, we want to hear your stories. Don't be afraid to send like paragraphs.
Yeah.
We might not read all of it, but we love hearing from y'all.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the show.
Yeah. I'm going to go outside because it's 70 degrees.
Hell yeah. Have fun.
All right.
I'll see you next time.
All right.
Bye. If you like what you heard, tell a friend about the podcast. You can direct them to picklesandvodka.substack.com, where you can find our entire back catalog and links to all our social media. We love hearing from our listeners, so send us a voice message at speakpipe.com/picklesandvodka or DM us at Pickles and Vodka Podcast on Instagram. My personal account is at XtinaJumper, and Lauren is at Lauren3_AFH. We'll see you next week.